Hey folks, welcome back to the Edupedia world, and I am Abhinay Gupta. And today again we will continue with the Professional Ethics by the Chartered Accountant Act 1949. Right? We have already had a couple of lectures on this topic where we have covered the basic elements and the basic requirements of the professional ethics. Right? Or those are actually the supplementary knowledge that you need to understand the important or the specific clauses. Right? When we talk about professional ethics, we have discussed what is a general ethics and what is professional ethics. Right? Which something that may be wrong ethically but may be right professionally. So there is something where it lies the difference. It is not something that you can measure on a universal scale that this is ethics means it is ethics everywhere. No. For different profession they have different ethics. Sometimes even lying is a good professional ethics if you are a lawyer and you're defending your client. Right? So we have understood those things. We have understood the qualifications, disqualifications, what are the various names, what are the various bodies that take care of various things, what are the kinds of punishments and all. Right? So now after having completed those aspects, it's time for us to get along with the specific schedules, right? The real professional ethics that you need to learn for your examination. That when we say, what are the professional ethics of a chartered accountant? You should be very well equipped to answer that our professional ethics contains these many clauses, these many parts, these many schedules, and is covered under this section. So you need to know what specifically each clause has to convey and what it means. Right? You will have to understand the background. You will have to understand everything. That okay, if they say the statement, then what could be its interpretation? Right? So let us begin with the core of this chapter, and we start with the first schedule. So if you remember, the first schedule has 4 parts: part 1, part 2, part 3, and part 4. And I would just bring it back to your mind by a quick revision that your part 1 actually covered the professional misconduct by a chartered accountant in practice. Part 2 was the professional misconduct by a chartered accountant in job. Right? Similarly, part 3, part 4, they were about a chartered accountant in general. Maybe you are in job, you are in service, you are not practicing, whatever you are. Right? And they also deal with professional as well as other misconducts. So it's a combination, and that is why it has been segregated, so that you are able to classify that if we are talking about a person in job, then we are definitely talking about the first schedule part 2. If it's in practice, it can be the first schedule part 1 and the second schedule part 1. Now again, how do you differentiate between both the schedules? So there's one thin line which is not actually specifically mentioned in your syllabus, but if you observe, then there is something that you would realize, that in first schedule, right, the misconducts that we are talking about, the professional or the other misconduct, they generally deal with all your misconducts prior to beginning your audit, or something that is not very specifically related to your audit work. Whereas the second schedule deals with those misconduct that you commit while you are on your assignment, while you are performing an audit. Right? So that is a general observation. It is not something which is very specifically demonstrated or very specifically stated anywhere in your subject matter. But that is one general observation, and I will keep reminding you and relating you to the scenario that I have just discussed. Right? So now if you are clear with those concepts and those topics, and we are enough by creating a background on this subject, on this chapter, we would now hit directly to understanding the individual clauses. Right, guys? So the first schedule, part 1, professional misconduct in relation to the chartered accountant in practice. We start with clause 1. So if I just barely read out what the clause says, it says, a chartered accountant in practice is deemed to be guilty of professional misconduct if he allows any person to practice in his name as a chartered accountant unless such person is also a chartered accountant in practice and is in partnership with or employed by him. Now, there's one thing I would like all of you to keep in mind and remember, that if you refer to the various books of the various authors, right, these lines and these statements may vary. Like there may be some additional words or something here and there. They may explain it, they may cut it short, they may have written anything and from anywhere. The point is, every individual text that you find on the screen for this class is a copy paste from your institute study material, because that is what we ultimately trust. Right? So if there is any mismatch, please don't be confused. Pick up your study material and you find exactly these words over there. Now, many students are under a myth that, sir, we are supposed to memorize each and every alphabet and word from this clause and quote it down over there with an inverted commas. Don't make that mistake. When I say don't make that mistake, doesn't mean it is wrong. No, if you can quote it down in inverted commas, absolutely perfect. Right? There's nothing to talk about it further. But if you miss out any single word, if you jumble up some word, if you make any silly mistake, any mistake over there, then since it is an inverted comma, right, you may get a wrong answer. So instead, write it down in your plain text, in your plain words. The meaning should be conveyed. There are specific points in each of these clauses. All those individual points have to be there and they have to be explained. And then you have to relate that, yeah, as per this point, this performance of this chartered accountant as per the above mentioned clause would result to professional misconduct or other misconduct, as the case may be. Right? So now there's one thing that you need to remember. The first line that we write, right, it is not necessary you mug up everything. If you apply your brain, then we write a chartered accountant in practice. Why? Because part 1, all the clauses will contain this statement. Because all the clauses, they deal with the misconduct of the chartered accountant who is in practice. Right? And the other statement, that he is deemed to be guilty of professional misconduct. That means it is not compulsory that once it is proved he will be guilty. No. If you are attempting any of these things, you are deemed to be guilty already. You are caught, you are not caught, you are punished, you are not punished is a separate issue. But you are guilty. That is what it wants to demonstrate. That any chartered accountant who is in practice will always be deemed to be guilty of professional misconduct. Why? Because part 1 deals with professional misconduct. Other misconducts will be dealt later in the other parts. Right? So this line will be common in all the clauses in part 1. A chartered accountant in practice is deemed to be guilty of professional misconduct if he. Now here is the game changer. Right? Now you pinpoint every specific event or action or whatever steps that he takes. Whether or not that leads to professional misconduct will be guided by these lines, these statements. And so, for this particular person, a person in practice, being a chartered accountant, right, and if he is into profession, right, so what will conduct a professional misconduct is only in these 12 clauses. That is prior to audit, right? During the audit is in the other 10 clauses in part 1 schedule, the second schedule. Right? So what does this clause go on to say? It says, if he allows any person to practice in his name as a chartered accountant, which means I am a chartered accountant, right? I go out and I get some client, Mr. XYZ Associates, XYZ, any XYZ company, right? That's my client. So what I do is, I get that client, I ask Mr. W, who is someone, he's a friend of mine, I have met him in my CA coachings, I have met him in my examinations, after that we have been good friends. I just tell him, okay, do one thing bro, I'll be out of town, and since you're not doing very well, do one thing, please do the audit of this client. I'll come, I'll sign, and we'll be sorted off with this, and we'll share some profit, I'll give you something. Right? So sharing profit is a separate issue. We are not talking about that right now. What we're talking about is me allowing some other person to act as a chartered accountant in my name. That means when he is going there as an auditor, or when he is performing that audit, the client always thinks that it is Abhinay Gupta and Associates that is performing that audit. But it's not the case. I am not doing it. It's my XYZ friend whom I just met somewhere. He's performing the audit and at the end I'll just sign it, or he's doing the audit in my name. That is not correct. That is when I will be deemed to be guilty of professional misconduct. Right? Over here it was one thing is good that okay, he was at least a chartered accountant. But if I send another friend who just dropped out in IPCC, because it's a very basic line, there are some specific things to do, and he has been in practice, his individual practice as accountant or something, and he's capable of doing it, so I send him, yeah bro, I'll be out of town, I need some help, and we'll share the profit, please come. But that is not correct. If you are a chartered accountant and the client has come up to you because the client wants his or her or its financials to be audited by you, right? So you have to perform that service. You cannot allow any other person to do it unless that person is also a chartered accountant, number one, plus he also has to be either your partner or your employee. That means a person from the same firm. Because when the client is coming, like when I was in the Big Four, when clients they come up, they approach Big Four, they don't say that I want my audit to be done by this specific partner. Yeah, you don't know about the availability of the partner, right? Although maybe the partner bought the client, the partner had a good relationship with the CEO of the client, and the partner influenced the client, and the client came down to KPMG. They're okay, we give you the audit. Does not necessarily mean that that partner has to audit. If the partner is not free, some other partner from the same firm will go and audit it. Why? Because that other partner is also a chartered accountant, and that other partner is in partnership with this partner. So they can do it. Or any director from KPMG, any senior manager from KPMG can do and perform that audit very well. Why? Because they are employees. Right? So always keep in mind that whenever you have a client, whenever you have an audit, right, when you have signed an engagement letter with any client on your name, make sure that either you are performing the audit or any other partner of yours, and that partner has to be a chartered accountant. And I say, sir, my partner will definitely be a chartered accountant. How do we run a chartered accountant firm? No. If you, like when we go through the other clauses, you will understand that there are other professionals also with whom you can partner, with whom you can create an LLP, wherein you can create a multi-profession partnership firm. Right? So if there is a lawyer who has partnered with you for your other activities, that lawyer cannot go and perform your task. So he has to be a partner for sure, or an employee for sure, but along with that they have to have the qualification of the chartered accountant. That is only when they can go and perform the audit. In any other case, you are guilty of professional misconduct. Clear with the point? So always keep in mind, if you have a client, if you have signed an engagement letter, either you or your partner or your employee who is a CA can only do it. So if you get a question in the examination that goes otherwise, then you will have to specify that. How do you write the answer? Right? You just first specify that as per first schedule, part 1, clause 1, this, write down the entire clause that this is what it is. As per the question, this is what has happened. So since they don't coincide, like they don't agree with each other, my clause says something else and this person has performed something else, so he is guilty of professional misconduct because this activity has happened. That's it. Right? But what you need to do is you need to specify the first schedule, specify the part, specify the clause. That is what contains the marks. And then do not mess up with the content of the clause. It is not compulsory that you write the exact words, but the content has to be delivered. Right? And this chapter, it contains 16 marks. Generally you get 4 questions, 4 marks each in your examination. Hit all 4 of them, bullseye, 16 out of 16. Right? You do not need to worry. You just need to score 24 more to qualify, man. and 24 out of the other 86 marks paper is not a big deal, right? So you'll have to strategize how do you qualify your audit paper, because it is a little difficult paper. Student says, so we don't score marks, and that's true. Why? Because you don't write it appropriately. And majority students, like when I was a student, I was preparing for my CA final, I saw majority of my friends and all, they do not complete the syllabus. They leave the chapters, banking, peer review and all those kinds of chapters. What they do is Caro, tax audit, professional ethics and the standards. That's it. That is not it. You have a lot of chapters pending. Complete all of those. We'll discuss all of those, right? So I was here giving you a brief about the clauses, right? So we would be just covering one clause in this class, and I hope you are clear with how you go ahead with them. That is how you go ahead with writing your answers, and how do you interpret the clause, and how do you understand it. So if that is clear, from the next class we will cover more than one clauses in a class, right? So that will be all for the lecture. I'll continue the other clauses in the subsequent lectures. So until then, this is Abhinay Gupta signing off. Thank you.